Hello everyone, this is Pal Ponder on Weather. In this update, we got a full breakdown on our major snowstorm and blizzard-like conditions this weekend for the Northeast, and next week is already looking interesting. Welcome back. How's it going out there? I'm really excited because I just got the notification from YouTube that my silver play button 100,000 milestone is actually going to be arriving in the mail today. So I'll be sure to post some pictures tomorrow after it arrives, but we got a lot to talk about. So go ahead and hit the like button as well as subscribe if you hadn't subscribed already to get all my daily updates. So let's give you a full breakdown. Let's take a look at the overall map this morning. And these little pink shaded and gray shaded areas, those are your dangerous wind chills happening right now. I've got the wind chills on the map and you can see widespread 20, 30 upwards to 40 below zero feels like temperatures, and it snowed yesterday big time in and around Colorado and going into Denver and especially some Kansas where I got some impressive snowfall totals to go over, and snow is flying into Albuquerque and Santa Fe this morning, and there's also another batch that's highlighted over portions of Texas as well. So let's zoom into Texas and take a look at the overall setup. Now I transferred this to the dew points because this is very crucial today because there's a extreme amount of dry air in this atmosphere. And as this snow is starting to fall on the panhandle, they're a little bit higher out here, but still really low. A lot of this is not actually going to be able to reach the surface. So as this pushes off to the east over it later on this afternoon, it's going to run into that dry air. So it's still going to be able to snow into portions of the panhandle, into portions of West Texas. That'll traverse across, say like in Wichita Falls. I think it will snow a little bit in portions of Oklahoma City and Tulsa area. But yeah, once it gets into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I think it's just going to rapidly decelerate and some change over to light snow, but it's going to hit these low dew points and it's just going to evaporate and not going to be able to reach the surface and eventually just vanish. So let's take a look at some of these totals yesterday, because here is the latest update. Look at the look at the chart on the snowfall legend here, and yeah, look at all the dotted blues and even some colors popping up into the mountains of Colorado. This area has been extremely dry. So it was really impressive to see this convective banding show up yesterday, and it was a relentless amount of snow that fell, and these red dots are upwards to, that's not a misprint, guys, that's 18 and yes, 2 feet of snow. I mean, look at Sharon Springs, snowed 20 inches yesterday. This area was forecasted to get 4 to 7 inches, guys. So that was an overperformance to say the least. But yeah, that was some pretty significant totals in that region. So let's take a look at the overall setup as that feature comes across Texas today. This is at 4 o'clock afternoon. Like I mentioned, this is going to be dumping some snow in the panhandle this morning. It's going to be moving across, and there's some snow breaking out into Wichita Falls, portions of Oklahoma City, into Tulsa. It's going to transfer over to some, light rain, trucking sprinkles. A lot of this is actually not going to be able to reach the surface, and of course it's dealing with the time of day too. So with temperatures warming up, obviously, in the peak heating of the day, this atmosphere and most of this, once it reaches Dallas, is basically just going to evaporate and just kind of fall apart. So unfortunately, I'm not really expecting much of anything into the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But if you live northwest of the city and northern up around the Red River and up to Wichita Falls, yeah, definitely I could see you getting some snowflakes this afternoon. So let's take a look at our setup. So by the time we get into Thursday time frame, these are our spokes of energy. This one's going to be moving across. That dies out, right? But our attention turns into the middle of the country, where it doesn't look very impressive right now. But once this takes advantage of that another reinsurging Arctic air, and then moves across out to the east, once it hits the East Coast, it rapidly accelerates into a negative tilt and brings down that Arctic air, pulls in that warm sea surface temperatures. And man, it just cranks up the eastern seaboard with a very heavy snow event, and if not blizzard-like conditions for much of the I-95 corridor. And that's the latest European guidance. And so we're starting to see the latest GFS starting to come together as well. So we're seeing model congruency now say, hey, this storm is definitely on the table, and it is coming in a big way. So you need to prepare for a big event that's coming up between the 28th, the 29th, and 30th time frame, right along the Northeast corridor, especially along the I-95 corridor. In fact, the National Weather Service is confident enough. They've actually put out a winter storm severity index of a moderate risk for impacts. So they're pretty confident. Confidence is increasing that a significant winter storm will create considerable impacts Friday through the weekend for the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. Heavy snow is most likely in parts of New England, but is also part further south along the East Coast, including the I-94 metro areas from New York City to DC. Significant coastal impacts are possible, including coastal flooding and beach erosion. Additionally, strong winds may cause blowing snow. So all these areas in yellow here that are highlighted, you're looking at more or less minor impacts, further inland. But once you get along the coast, along the I-95 corridor, that's a significant amount of real estate here having minor impacts in the yellow, moderate impacts in the orange. Yeah, we could be looking at some hefty damage and along this area. And there's actually even a corridor where you could possibly see some major damage. So that's a huge swath of significant impacts that are coming up to affect a huge area of the Northeast. So let's take a look at the overall ensemble member guidance, and all these ensemble members are really starting to really compact together. That's basically saying, hey, we upped our confidence and say, hey, this storm is really going to come to fruition. And where exactly is some of the heavier snowfall totals going to be taking place? But you can see it's right along pretty much almost like what they call the benchmark, which is the 40 north and 70 west. Most ensemble members, low pressures, have this area right along the benchmark. So that is why the European model is the most bullish on this setup, because it has the most ensemble members right now at this point right along basically the benchmark, which give you the most significant impacts along the the metro areas. And the latest GFS has it moving just a tad bit further east, but still a significant event is on the table. So let's take a look at the overall setup, which I thought this was really interesting. And I waited till the latest, European guidance came out on the shorter run. It only goes out 90 hours, but it had a crucial impact. So as we get into that, midnight, 3 o'clock time frame, this low starts to develop off the southeast coast. So it really doesn't even get its act together until Friday night. We're talking early Saturday morning, right? So by early Saturday morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, the low pressure is 1,003 millibar, right? We've got some snow starting to break out. We've got significant Arctic air pushing down from the south. Look at those isobars. Look at the high pressure reaching all the way down to the coast. Even Florida is going to be much freezing by this weekend, especially on Sunday. I mean, some of these, even Miami could be reaching 39 degrees. So that tells you this is a significant amount of Arctic air plunging southward along with that low pressure. So as it pulls through, we've got some snow breaking out in portions of eastern Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, portions of North Carolina, getting into Virginia, as well as West Virginia, and it's really starting to crank up in portions of Delaware by the time we get about 3 o'clock in the morning. That's on Saturday morning. So as we go into that 9 o'clock hour, 3 o'clock, get in that early overnight there, it really starts to amplify down to a 991 millibar low pressure. Now we're talking some heavier snow totals starting to form along the I-95 corridor for basically from let's say Virginia Beach up through Delmarva, going up through New York City to Philly to all the way to Boston, with some heavier snow back into Jersey as this low pressure sets up off the coast with all snow. It's all snow. Any rain will be well out to sea. This is all snow on the interior regions. Then as we get into that noontime, going into that noontime frame on Saturday, we're down to a 978 millibar low pressure. And look at the placement, guys. It's basically right there. It's right on the benchmark. So that's why this is a significant event, especially along the I-95 corridor in the coastal areas with some very heavy snow. The dark purples basically indicate we could be looking at some significant heavy snow, blowing snow, blizzard-like conditions possibly at that point with very high winds right along the coast here, and that could be a significant event. But what's interesting, if we zoom out, right? So if we zoom out and kind of give you the big picture, there's the active subtropical jet really pumping this low off the coast. And then it's actually going to be feeling the effects of this ridge. And the European model's been hinting at this. Some of these taking this little loop-de-loop, right? So it takes like even like kind of a loop, because it's actually feel the effects. Once this pushes further north, it's feeling the effects of this ridge. So what's interesting on this latest European run, yeah, it actually pulls the storm back. Yeah, so we were talking a 40 to 70 storm low pressure. Now it's back down to a 38 north, right? So this puts it well offshore. All this would be snow. If this were to take place, and the European has been actually hinting at this with these little loops, with these individual runs showing this, feel the effects, that would obviously increase the snowfall totals even more. With that low pressure, not only does it drop further south, but it also amplifies and gets even stronger and then moves out, right? So that could be a very long time of very significant heavy snowfall totals along the coast here. And here is the last night's setup, right? So here's the difference on just the latest runs with that low pressure. It was basically a 42 north, and this morning we're down to a 969 with the latest intermediate run. So that is a significant move. And if that were to take place, obviously that would probably just add another 5 to 10 inches on top some of these totals I'm already going to be showing you. So these are very impressive totals. We're talking feet of snow along these areas. So pretty much blockbuster blizzard is almost basically on the table at this point. And here's the latest as we get into the latest GFS. It has it just a little bit further off to the east, but still a significant event that's definitely going to be on the table by the time we get into this weekend. And very high winds. I mean, here's the widespread winds. I mean, you only need 35-mile-per-hour winds for a 3-hour time frame to basically get blizzard-like conditions. So we're talking heavy snow, 1, 2, 3, upwards to 4-inch-per-hour snowfall rates at times. And then here's the higher winds. I mean, we're talking 50, 60, upwards to even 70 miles an hour here is definitely not out of the question. This is definitely a significant event. Here's some totals right now on the latest European guys, and this is actually factoring in more or less kind of a standard 10-to-1 ratio. Yeah, here's over the next 90 hours, setting up essentially from Friday night through Sunday morning. And yeah, look at some of these impressive totals. Not much into South Carolina, into the Carolinas, a little bit higher amounts into portions of Virginia. But this is mainly an I-94 corridor setup, essentially from, say, Virginia Beach all the way through Delmarva, and especially into Jersey, into Long Island, Philly, Boston, Connecticut, getting into Rhode Island, up to Massachusetts, up here into Vermont, New Hampshire, and then southern Maine here. So really along this corridor is the most possibly significant totals. And what's even more impressive, that was just factoring in a 10-to-1 ratio. Say if we get 15, which is definitely not out of the question with this type of setup, 15-to-1 ratio, these Coachella events set almost like off the chart. I mean, that's 40 inches, guys. I mean, I hope that doesn't happen. That would be 3 feet of snow. I mean, that is just unbelievable. That would be, again, factoring in that low pressure shifting back, and that would add to those totals, right? So if that low pressure is able to feel the effects of that ridge and then shift backward, man, that would add to those totals in a significant way. So as we move forward to next week, it's already looking interesting, right? I mean, we've been kind of high and dry out west. There's not much happening. The atmospheric river is really tapped out, but things change in a big way next week. Pattern shift. We got a developing low pressure off the northwest coast here with some more heavy rain moving back into places like Seattle, into Portland, and the northern California. Snow in the interior regions, flying into Idaho, getting back into Montana. This is low pressure dive south, but we got this ridge developing with the southwest winds. We're going to be rapidly warming up in the midsection of the country in a big way, along with that trough going to be diving southward on the backside. So as we get into that Wednesday time frame of next week, say around February 2nd time frame, we've got a diving low pressure system going back all the way down to the coast, right? So this is typically when the South really starts to look at some of these, these storms that could be potentially moving further south, because the jet stream just typically lowers this time of year. So if you were to get any snow or ice into portions of the deep south, this February is typically when you would get these type systems. And with the low pressure diving further off into the south here, with the ridge building up to the north, we got a lot of active weather. So if we zoom in and look at some of these latest temperature anomalies, yeah, by the time we get into that February 2nd, February 3rd time frame, yeah, look at the difference in separation. We got a rapid warm up. We're talking well above average temperatures. That could be setting the stage for some severe weather, might be breaking out ahead of this very strong cold front with plunging temperatures on the backside. And this would have precipitation with it as well. So things could definitely start getting interesting for portions of the South as we get into next week. We got severe weather probably to deal with on the soupy side, and then with the cold side, we've got snow, ice, and a lot of colder temperatures on the backside. So there's gonna be a lot to iron out next week. So, but yeah, next week looks just as interesting as what's happening this week. But this is going to be affecting more or less a good chunk of the country as this system moves from west to east pretty much all week long as we progress throughout the week. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.